It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley as we move into a Tuesday. Gary, how are you?
Just make it stop. Make it stop. Make it stop. All right, here we go. This is the 60-minute special edition last night.
Let me tell you what your critics and the columnists say.
Okay.
They say that the reason so many voters don't know you is that you have changed your position on so many things. You were against fracking, now you're for it. You supported looser immigration policies, now you're tightening them up. You were for Medicare for all, now you're not. So many that people don't truly know what you believe or what you stand for. And I know you've heard that.
In the last 4 years, I have been Vice President of the United States. And I have been traveling our country. And I have been listening to folks and seeking what is possible in terms of common ground. I believe in building consensus. We are a diverse people, geographically, regionally, in terms of where we are in our backgrounds. And what the American people do want is that we have leaders who can build consensus, where we can figure out compromise and understand it's not a bad thing, as long as you don't compromise your values, to find common sense solutions. And that has been my approach.
Has it? Has it really?
Wow. Wow.
Has it really?
Oh, my God. Just so. Make it stop.
She's you said it right before we went on. That was the extent of our pre-show meeting. She just really is not good in any setting.
Yeah, she is.
She's not good in any serious interview setting. She's not good in any showbiz interview setting because she tries to be funny and she tells weird jokes. And in a serious setting, she does a word salad and does a non-answer over and over again. Traveling the country trying to build consensus. What do you believe?
And why?
What do you stand for? Trying to build. You know what she sounds like? Beto. I'm going to listen to the people. I'm going to listen to the people. What I'm going to do is listen to the people. Well, the people say they don't want you in office. Thanks, but no thanks. No, this is exactly what you get. And this is what the left already knows. This is what the activist leftist media already knows. They know this about her. This isn't a secret. She said it. She started out with it. She's been vice president for 4 years.
Let's play another cut here, all right? Here we go.
All right.
My plan is about saying that when you invest in small businesses, you invest in the middle class, and you strengthen America's economy. Small businesses are part of the backbone of America's economy.
But pardon me, Madam Vice President, the question was, how are you going to pay for it?
Well, one of the things is I'm going to make sure that the richest among us who can afford it pay their fair share in taxes. It is not right that teachers and nurses and firefighters are paying a higher tax rate than billionaires and the biggest corporations.
That's a lie.
That's a lie.
That's an absolute lie.
That's a lie.
But you know what they did, and this is a lie that's been going on for such a long time. What they're saying is you don't pay the same in capital gains as you do income tax.
Right.
Well, that's like saying, well, you don't pay the same in property tax as you do sales tax.
Right.
Doesn't make any sense.
Right.
You're talking about two different type of taxes, and if you have capital gains, if you have capital gains, you're going to pay the same amount for whatever level you're at as anybody else. Mm-hmm. That's an absolute lie.
And if you're earning more, you're in a higher bracket.
Right.
You're paying a higher rate.
Right. It's just ridiculous.
But she's trying to use the old lie. That's a 2008 lie.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
It's a 2008 lie.
Oh,
By the way, it's a 2008 lie that came from Warren Buffett, who knows better. Out of all the people in the world, knows better.
Yeah, but who was it was it Obama that was asked in the primary debate by one of the anchors of ABC?
Yeah,
about
Charlie Gibson.
Charlie Gibson about capital gains tax.
When you raise the tax revenue, this is basically the premise of the question, close to verbatim. Mr. Obama, you want to raise the capital gains tax. But history tells us when we raise the capital gains tax, revenue actually goes down. And his answer was, we're going to do it anyway out of a sense of fairness. In other words, we want people to feel like we're being fair. We're not actually being fair. We don't know what fair means. Nobody can define fair. I'll tell you who defines fair. Any parties involved in any exchange or negotiation, and only those parties. That's who decides what's fair. The government doesn't get to tell me what they believe is fair. No. Fair is one of these political words that comes up far too often. Fair share. Those of us that pay their fair share, we need to pay our fair share. And that lie that's been going on for a long time, and it is a lie because they know exactly what they're doing.
The interesting thing is, fair. Isn't it funny that the one of the biggest points of morality that the left brings up is the concept of fair share that nobody has yet defined and they will not define.
Right.
And so when that happens, you have others say, well, wait a minute. The top 1% of wage earners, pay, it's usually between 38 and 43% of all federal taxes.
Right.
The bottom 50% of wage earners pay nothing.
Right. Then you add in the states that have a state income tax. I know she's not in charge of that, and she's talking federal tax, and you were talking federal tax, but I mean, they get to a point in California, the highest earners, 52.3%? That's more than half. That's actually more than half of all the years.
That's why I
laughed.
That joke. Yeah, exactly. That's why I laughed.
The one time I'm serious, it's still funny.
It's like somebody out there going, "Why is Gary laughing? Why do you start laughing?" Because you were actually correct that time.
Because when Gary's doing a story, a survey, nearly 40%. Wow, that's more than half.
But that moment from Obama was so telling because it really, really, in a nutshell, describes liberalism.
Yeah.
That Charlie Gibson was making the point, and Obama agreed that if you raise the capital gains tax, you get less income.
And Charlie Gibson had to approach it twice in order for him to finally agree to it and acknowledge that he knew the difference.
Which means that it wasn't important to a liberal that you actually have more revenue in government to do the things that you wish to do, which you believe are moral and right.
Mm-hmm.
It's more important to put out the imagery that you're punishing someone and you have less available cash to do what you wish to do to make society better.
Yep.
That's liberalism perfectly.
Yep.
And the fact is, Obama was never called on that by anyone.
Nope.
No one ever called him on it.
No, Charlie Gibson was the only one on that, that night that happened, and there was no fact-checking by other liberal activists and media at the time.
But she is so poor. I can't wait to find out what happened. The whole thing, the NBC story that Harris called DeSantis.
Mm-hmm. And he didn't answer her call?
He didn't answer her call, and it's a selfishness of him not caring about the people of Florida. DeSantis like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Nobody called me.
Right.
And nobody in my office, said that. We have
Right.
no idea what you're talking about.
Right. Well,
And by the way, the hit jobs now expected on CNN, they were going crazy. I mean, trying to explain why Trump is Hitler and the apocalypse and the Holocaust is coming back again.
It's all they got.
It's going to continue to ramp up over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
As it looks like the polls again continue to move in Trump's direction. I think it was Mark Mitchell yesterday from Rasmussen. He was just saying, you notice they haven't done a poll in the last 3 days. Nobody's done a 3-day poll in the last few days except us. And I think it was him and Atlas Intel, I think it was, or Inside Advantage, which I think is Atlas Intel. I forgot now. But it's like, and the two polls that have been out the last couple of days showed Trump up 2 points and 3 points. He said, you notice they're not putting out their polls. They're not publishing polls right now.
Yeah.
Where normally you'd see a bunch of them every single day. And this is really interesting because you both have the guy who runs Trafalgar. Is it Haley? And also Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen, and they're just absolutely pounding. They've been doing it for a while. Mark Mitchell's been doing it for a few months, just sitting there going, these polls are not legit. I mean, they're not holding back anymore.
He's doing a weekly update. Maybe he's ramped that up even more, but he was doing a weekly update on YouTube, basically breaking down the data they have and talking about the other pollsters and explaining it all. It's there.
Yeah.
It's available.
Yeah, and they're not fighting back.
No.
You don't hear them coming back.
No.
I haven't, because you would expect that the pollsters, just to maintain credibility, would say Mitchell is wrong. This is ridiculous, or put out a statement, and then the left would just jump on it and pound on it, and you don't see that happening.
Which tells you they don't care about being accurate.
Well, we'll see.
Because
very soon.
if they did, they would care about their integrity. And if somebody were attacking their integrity or their process, their methodology, they'd come back after them.
But she just can't do an interview, can she?
She can't.
She just can't.
It's horrible.
Can't do one.
It's just horrible. But, Madam Vice President, that wasn't the question. I mean, how are you going to pay for it? And I was careful to phrase it that way.
Yeah. Or you flip-flopped on all these issues. That's why people don't know where you stand.
Yeah.
Well, I've traveled the
country.
I've traveled the country
and
talked to people. That wasn't the question. We know that.
As a former child of a middle-class family. By the way, she slipped up on that one, right? How are you going to pay for it? Well, she included herself and the wealthy. You know, I come from a middle-class family. Which is it? Trying to connect to the middle class or the elitists?
We've got a great show ahead. 866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. As the seasons change, so does truck maintenance. Cold weather can affect everything from your batteries and air brake system to tire inflation and fuel lines. Here's a maintenance tip to help make sure your rig is ready when winter comes knocking. When water and moisture build in your air brake system in the dead of winter, it will almost certainly freeze and turn to ice, which can damage valves, air dryers, and other air system components. Be sure to inspect your system for any air leaks and to confirm the system is receiving a clear air supply. Check and drain your air tanks daily to keep water, contaminants, and corrosion at bay. Find a professional service center near you to learn more about winterizing your truck or to have your air brake system inspected today.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Just so people know, we're not throwing BS by them because we don't wish to BS. Let's go back to 2012. All right, and that moment where Obama and Charlie Gibson were talking about the whole capital gains tax, and this comes from Kamala Harris and her discussion on how she would raise all of her funds yesterday, and making the lie that the rich pay less of a rate than the than average people, and that's a complete lie. And that's where they threw in a couple of years ago. This goes all the way back even to the Obama era. Well, the rich pay less in capital gains and people pay an income tax. Well, that's a different tax. It's like saying you pay, different property tax rate than you do sales tax. It's a dumb and stupid and ridiculous argument. But then we brought up the perfect point of liberalism, where it's totally imagery over substance. Here's this. Here we go.
All right. You have, however, said you would favor an increase in the capital gains tax. As a matter of fact, you said on CNBC, and I quote, "I certainly would not go above what existed under Bill Clinton, which was 28%. It's now 15%. That's almost a doubling if you went to 28%. But actually, Bill Clinton in 1997 signed legislation that dropped the capital gains tax to 20%. Right. And George Bush has taken it down to 15%. And in each instance, when the rate dropped, revenues from the tax increased. The government took in more money. And in the 1980s, when the tax was increased to 28%, the revenues went down. So why raise it at all, especially given the fact that 100 million people in this country own stock and would be affected?
Well, Charlie, what I've said is that I would look at raising the capital gains tax for purposes of fairness. We saw an article today which showed that the top 50 hedge fund managers.
There he goes, right into it.
Yep.
He didn't want to address the question. He goes, that these people are really, really rich was his argument back, but that wasn't the argument. The argument was, if you care about the poor, if you say that you wish to have more government money to do the things that you say will help the poor, because it's class warfare that they're playing in this whole thing.
Yep.
Well, then why would you put in a tax policy that would raise less revenue? And he said it for purposes of fairness.
Right.
So people look at it and go, okay, you got that guy. Yeah, but there's less money raised. Doesn't matter.
Which
It's
means
not about the substance of it.
Which means he didn't care at all about his core principle that he promoted, which was redistributive rights.
Yeah, exactly. Right, exactly.
Because you can't have redistributive rights. You cannot facilitate what you call redistributive rights unless you have the revenue. You have to increase the revenue. You're taking it from the rich and giving to the poor. But in this case, he was okay taking less from the rich, actually.
And that's just for all of you Democrats and independents and whoever who voted for Obama, who just went, oh, my gosh, he's like a deity. Look at this guy. Hope and change. And this is just so wonderful. He's the smartest man in the room, the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
One of the most intelligent human beings. No, he's not.
No, he's not.
And he never was.
And
you got suckered.
Yep, he was a hardcore socialist, still is. Yeah. And it's exactly where we are with Kamala Harris. And I don't know of anybody, in fact, on the left. You saw that Elizabeth Warren wants to go after CEOs for shrinkflation.
I know.
The soda makers for shrinkflation.
We'll have that.
Why? Because they're making smaller bottles. There's actually another reason for making smaller bottles. They can't have their win. They can't, you're using too much plastic. Okay, we'll make smaller bottles. You can't make smaller bottles. And the smaller bottles per ounce actually cost more. I actually prefer sometimes the smaller bottle. I worked in high school. I worked at a grocery store, and the wife of the owner was the business manager of the grocery store, and she made sure her husband in the soda machine carried I think it was either 8 or 10 ounce glass Coca-Cola bottles, because she said they totally taste different. And I will tell you, like the mini cans of soda, they do. They just I don't know what it is about the compression or whatever. They just taste better. And they want to tell you basically they're charging more and it's shrinkflation. Well, again, going after big corporations, going after the rich, they're going at everything with the old playbook because their candidate is weak.
You're a threat to democracy if you don't download our app, Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, you and I talking about the CBS story about the CBS reporter in a little bit of trouble because he interviewed the author who took a pro-Hamas. Wrote a book basically, and he said, "Well, but you left out everything about Israel and what they're going through." Yeah, and they had a civil discussion, and then apparently the staff went nuts. And I did read one headline. They need to make sure that DEI is involved, you know, in this now because I'm not really sure what the complaint was about, to be honest with you. But they said it didn't fulfill CBS's journalistic standards, which made me laugh out loud. Yeah. But I wanted to play this here with yesterday being the anniversary of October 7th. This is Bari Weiss from the Free Press on with Chris Cuomo yesterday, making some really good points. Here we go.
There's two catastrophes that we mark on this day. The one is the catastrophe that murdered 1,200 people and took more than 250 captive. That's the one catastrophe. And the war that Hamas began on this day when it massacred innocent people. The second catastrophe is the failure by the West, or at least by many in the West, of a critical moral test. Do you stand with that mother whose picture you showed in the beginning of this episode, in the beginning of this show? Young mother Shiri Bibas with her 9-month-old baby and her 4-year-old redheads clinging to them? Or do you side with the barbarian who dragged them into the tunnels under Gaza? The fact that we even have to have that discussion is a sign of how far the rot in this country has traveled. And it's a sign of the stakes of this war that we're in for the West, and how crucial it is that we summon all of our courage and all of our conviction to fight it.
Now, just so you know, Bari Weiss was part of the, in case you don't know who she is, maybe some of our listeners don't, she runs a place called the Free Press. She's a former New York Times reporter, former liberal. Who actually said maybe Donald Trump is right, but she is rejected. She was part of the Twitter files. Because of all that, and because of the censorship, and because of the insane, she probably would say not liberal bias, because she's probably still has a lot of liberal opinions, maybe traditional liberal opinions. But she views what's going on in liberalism today as just pure insanity. And so what she did was she formed the Free Press and said, we're going to do articles, we're going to do journalism. That's what we're going to do here. But she has been very, very outspoken about what's going on in Israel. You know something, Eric? A couple of things happened yesterday. I was watching CNN, and they were talking about the fact that the extremely well-educated are the ones that are actually, you know, at a greatest level ever going to vote Democrat. And we know what's happened in the working class. And at the same time that I saw that yesterday, I'd YouTube on, as I tell everybody, the best money I ever spent was whatever it is, at $12, $13 a month, not to get commercials on YouTube.
Yeah, right.
And so it was just in random shuffle. And all of a sudden, a documentary came up. And I watched like 3 of these documentaries as I was doing work around the house. And it was about women guards during Nazi Germany's at the concentration camp. And I mean, just, you know, brutal, just brutal. And it shows you that, you know, these women could behave in a brutal, sadistic, murderous way, just like any man could. And it's, you know, a couple of the, you know, it shakes you up a little bit because they talk about the life, you know, these women guards and how they were, you know, when they were young, and how they got into, you know, all of this and eventually became sadistic, murderous guards at concentration camps. And I started thinking, because, you know, that along with the Soviet Union and Nazism and everything else, that when you think about it, it's fascinating what's happening in this country right now. It is really, I think, more unique than it is commonplace, because what you have now, and you look at whether it was Nazi Germany, whether it's communism, which was always looking to go after the worker, go after the worker and use racism in order to do it. And when you look at, the Nazis, you look at, the Jews. When you look at communism, you look at, okay, we're here to protect the workers. This is about the workers, the workers, the workers, the workers. And so all of the totalitarian behavior by the communist leaders, wherever you find it, and the brutality was to keep the workers, actually not to give the workers liberation, but to, in essence, enslave the workers. Today, when you look at it, when you look at the racism that exists today, it's the elite. And they're not you. They may have attempted, maybe they thought that the racism that they practice with identity politics, maybe it worked in the beginning for them. You're a victim, you're a victim, you're a victim, you're a victim, you're a victim. Problem is, it came all the way around, and you might have been a victim yesterday, you're an oppressor today. But it's really interesting, and I was thinking about this yesterday, I went, wow, this is really, this isn't talked about enough, how what we see going on today. And when you talk about, the nationalism which justified the racism, well, the nationalism today that you see that the left attempts to project out to Nazi Germany doesn't have the same features at all, because it's not using racism. It's simply saying, it's talking about citizens of the United States. It's about taking care of the citizens of the United States before you attempt to take care of the entire world, because it's not possible for you to do it. It's about obeying the laws that we have to allow everybody there. I don't know anyone that is saying that if you're not in a terrorist country, because we dealt with this during the Trump administration. It said, okay, you remember the Obama administration came in and said, okay, we're not going to allow these people temporarily not in this because of the terrorism risk. That was terrorism. That's Islamic radicalism is what that is. Wasn't based on race or anything. But basically, wherever you are in the world, you've been able to come in, and the Republicans have no problem with legal immigration doing that.
Right.
So what you've got coming from the left is, if you're not for illegal immigration, you're a racist and you're practicing the same kind of nationalism that, that was happening in Nazi Germany, which, of course, is ridiculous. But the thing that you see now as the working class moves towards the Republicans in greater numbers than ever seen before, it's not about racism. It's not about when you think, it's not about the misogyny of the radical transgender movement. The attempt by the left to promote victimhood to get the working class has completely backfired on them.
Yeah,
it's completely different than what happened in Nazi Germany. And so all of the racism, the misogyny, the totalitarian, thought, you saw it just in the last couple of days. Hillary Clinton and John Kerry coming out again saying the First Amendment wants to go, needs to go. The people that wish to take away the rights of the people are all in the, should I say, the intelligentsia. Let's start using those terms. And it's the wealthy, it's the very wealthy, and it's the highly going to school people. I don't want
college boys.
I want. Oh God. It was on.
Red West.
I went by it the other day and it was on, and he got Red West. It was Saturday afternoon. I turned it on, and he got promoted to be an officer, and he tore apart everything because he didn't want to ever be a college boy, and he didn't want to be an officer, and it was great. I was thinking of you the whole time. College boys with a cigar in his mouth. That's from Black Sheep Squadron from the 70s. Robert Conrad in that, and but when you but it's the rich and those that have gone to, and the further higher up you go in education, the more brainwash you have.
Right.
All of the stuff that we hated that contributed to communism and Nazism is not embraced by the workers of this country. It's embraced by the highly, we went to school longer than you did people. I can't say educated because they aren't.
Right. Yeah.
Because they haven't learned a damn thing about history.
Right.
And the rich. And when I compared the CNN story yesterday about, the highly educated, that's what they were saying, the highly educated are voting for Kamala Harris. Well, that's baloney. They're not educated at all.
No, they're not.
But I just thought about it, I go, wow, it's sort of the reverse happening. They got nobody to convince but themselves.
Right.
They used to, you would have it, in the people in charge, the highly educated, would use those things in order to get the worker to support them by using, as we say, envy and jealousy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not working.
No.
It's not working in the
isn't.
United States. Sort of the opposite is happening. It's like they're sitting in their own little bubble, continuing to be more racist, more, the Jewish hatred. The Jewish hatred is not shared by the working class of this country.
No.
Which was the goal of Nazi Germany.
Right.
Let's use them as the scapegoat. It's not working. The only people using them as a scapegoat
are the elitists. And, John Kerry comes complete with a Thurston Howell the third dialect. Well, I shouldn't have to lobby. Why am I having to fly commercial? Ew. Why would I do that? Ew. But this is it. And it also tells you it's very clear this is a very evil intent. When you have them promoting things the way that they are, they're proud, by the way, these radicals, of their anti-Semitism.
Oh,
they are proud of it. They, John Kerry and Hillary and all of them that are promoting, now openly promoting doing away with the First Amendment. That used to be one of those things that, you guys and your slippery slope. There's no slope. It's that right there. It's the very fact that they're saying, and this is exactly what John Kerry was saying, that the First Amendment blocks them from getting their agenda done.
Yep.
He used that word.
And
it gets in our way is what he's saying.
And has one major or minor Democrat come out and said, stop talking like this.
We absolutely can't be the party of wanting to do away with free speech, but they can't deny that they already are.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Right. Not one Democrat has come out against it. Not one.
I'm really curious to see if Trump wins, what happens, how many more Democrats decide they're going to leave the party. It's usually only a handful anyway, and it hasn't been that many. But there have been more prominent Democrats like Bari Weiss, Michael Rappaport. These are people who were known for their liberalism. I mean, Michael Rappaport's an actor, really great in Copland. But he was known as a radical liberal. And I'm wondering how many more and I would consider those to be more of the rank and file, closer to the rank and file, but certainly with great influence. How many are looking at this saying, I can't belong, I can't identify, I can't be associated with this group anymore because of the evil that goes on. Promoting your support for Hamas and Hezbollah after October 7th lies you squarely with the terrorists in a very evil category. And there's no two ways around it. You don't get to pick and choose and fence walk this thing. You belong in the evil category, and that is forever. It's eternal.
Coming up, latest on Hurricane Milton, the 1 a.m. Central update is in. We'll have the latest on that, 866-90 Red Eye.
Lines open for your calls, 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. The 1 a.m. Central National Hurricane Center report is out here, their latest forecast. And right now, and current conditions right now, Milton is at maximum sustained wind at 155 miles per hour. I think Milton reached 185 was the top yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Wow,
and losing a little bit of that, but also that movement compared to Helene, Milton is moving at 9 miles per hour, and Helene was moving very quickly at 23, 25 miles an hour, remember. So Milton gaining strength in a big, big way from that warm Gulf waters.
Top of the hour news is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm trying to get everything. I've got just tons of audio here. I'm just trying to find the... Maybe I didn't save it. Okay, maybe I didn't. I thought I saved the one where she was at the plane when the story came out. Okay, I guess I didn't save that. I'm sorry. I thought I saved it.
All right, we'll find it.
Well, I really don't need it. I mean, it's I can really go straight to what Scott Jennings. Scott Jennings talking about it, and this is this was the Kamala Harris, being asked by a reporter because of the NBC story that she is calling, that she called DeSantis. And he didn't answer. And when asked about it, she said that he is selfish. I think this is it right here. I think this is the first one, okay? Here we go. All right.
President, Governor DeSantis, NBC is reporting Governor DeSantis is ignoring your calls on hurricanes, resources, and help. How does that hurt the situation here?
Moments of crisis, if nothing else, should really be the moment that anyone who calls themselves a leader says they're going to put politics aside and put the people first. People are in desperate need of support right now, and playing political games with this moment in these crisis situations, these are the height of emergency situations, is just utterly irresponsible, and it is selfish, and it is about political gamesmanship instead of doing the job that you took an oath to do, which is to put the people first.
So that's pretty direct, isn't it?
Yeah.
Governor DeSantis is refusing her calls because he's selfish.
Yeah.
And he's playing politics with it. This is DeSantis on with Sean Hannity last night.
And we've been laser focused on leveraging all resources available, including from the federal government. And I've been in touch with both FEMA and the president, as well as marshaling all our state agencies and working to support our local communities. And so for Kamala Harris to try to say that my sole focus on the people of Florida is somehow selfish is delusional. She has no role in this. In fact, she's been vice president for 3.5 years. I've dealt with a number of storms under this administration. She has never contributed anything to any of these efforts. And so what I think is selfish is her trying to blunder into this. No. And here's the thing. She has no role. No, she has no role in this process. I'm in contact with the President of the United States. I'm in contact with FEMA director. I'm obviously managing all our state agencies. We're supporting all our local government. And I will say this. I've had storms under both President Trump and President Biden, and I've worked well with both of them. She's the first one who's trying to politicize the storm, and she's doing that just because of her campaign. She's trying to get some type of an edge. She knows she's doing poorly, and so she's playing these political games. I don't have time for political games. I've got people whose lives are on the line. I've got people whose homes and their possessions are on the line, and we are focused 100% on that mission. I'm not worried about playing her political games. And so she is being selfish by trying to blunder into this when we're working just fine.
He also said that he has no idea what she's talking about, because nobody called him. Nobody called him, and he said, and nobody in my office has said anything about this.
Right.
So wow, that was just boom. And so then we get to Scott Jennings on CNN last night talking about this. He actually got some support from the left here. Here we go.
I mean, she's attacking the governor of a state that's about to get lashed with one of the most historic hurricanes we've ever seen. Is she crazy? He did not ignore her call.
She was talking, just to be clear, she was talking broadly about the politicization of the storms.
I think she was talking about Ron DeSantis. He did not ignore her call. And in fact, according to what I've read tonight, he actually spoke to the President of the United States.
He did
Joe
speak
Biden.
with President Biden.
And he has said time and again that he and the federal government are working well together. So who here is politicizing this?
Yeah, I hate to agree with Scott on anything, but I agree. I agree in this case.
I actually agree with you that there's too much disinformation, misinformation, or things that are not factual swirling about the hurricane. I actually think the facts are bad enough. When the storm came ashore, Biden was at the beach and Harris was raising money. And that was on September 26th. On September 27th, we had devastation in North Carolina. It wasn't until October the 2nd that the president mobilized the military, and it wasn't until the 5th that they mobilized 500 search and rescue out of the military. So I think there's two things going on. The immediate impacted people and what they need and what they can get. People need to consult their local officials and governors about that. But there is a conversation to be had here about spending priorities, yes, and also about presidential decision-making, which in my opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of Republicans, were really, really slow.
There you go.
Yeah, it's...
you notice she didn't say, yes, I called him.
No, she didn't.
NBC came out with the story first.
Which is... And they asked her the question, and she kind of walked around the question, which is indicative of not actually knowing what the accusation is. Because why wouldn't she just say, I want to be very clear, I made a call to the governor and he didn't answer. Because if that's the case, again, those are the accusations. Why wouldn't she be very clear about that when asked about it?
Yeah, here's the Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is not taking calls from the vice president about storm recovery just over a week after Hurricane Helene hammered parts of his state. A source familiar with the situation said he was dodging and the Democratic presidential nominee's calls because they seemed political, according to a DeSantis aide. Kamala was trying to reach out. We didn't answer, the DeSantis aide told NBC News. DeSantis has been in direct contact with the Federal Emergency Management Director. At a press conference Monday afternoon, DeSantis denied he refused to take Harris's call. I didn't know that she had called. I'm not sure who they called. They didn't call me. Their characterization of it was something that they did. It wasn't that anybody in my office, it wasn't anything that anybody in my office did in terms of saying that it was political. Asked about NBC News report Monday afternoon and whether the politics was seeping into the hurricane response, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said that's really for the governor to speak to, right? She said the White House invited DeSantis to survey the storm damage with President Biden. It was his decision to not attend or not be there. With the president, it's up to him. We're doing our part in the Biden administration, blah, 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 blah. There you go. On Monday evening, the White House put out a statement saying the president's spoken to both DeSantis and Tampa Mayor Jane Castor about the hurricanes, about both the hurricanes. Last week, DeSantis said Biden had called him, but he was flying at the time, so he could not take the call. Biden was in North Florida last week to survey the damage, but DeSantis was holding a press conference that had already been scheduled in another part of the state, so they did not meet. Mm-hmm. So there you go. That's an easy one to prove. What number did you call?
Yeah, right.
And who did you talk to?
If there's a conversation between a sitting vice president and a sitting governor of a state, there's record of that call at some point. Maybe with the exception of the governor being mobile, which would be expected in a situation like this, and her calling his cell phone directly. But this accusation, this is the problem with the fact that they don't know how to read a room to save their political lives. The excuses they're making on FEMA, the excuses they're making for not showing up after Helene, and now this. You've got a governor that is preparing, and probably everybody that's following along has seen the evacuation highways and how full they are. You and I were talking about that during a break. That's indicative of what the locals had said, and they're going to put more pressure on locals to get out of the way of Milton. And so you see a lot of people on the highways. It does not look good for the people in the path or the properties in the path of Milton. So the governor has his hands full again. And now she's accusing him of politicizing it, and she has no say in the process. If she wants to say, I sent him a message, I know he's busy, just to let him know we're with the people of Florida and thinking of them, and we're encouraging people to get out of the way of this storm, that's one thing. He wouldn't take my call. He's politicizing. You don't have any say-so in this entire equation.
Yeah. You're not part of the discussion. It's between the president and, unless the president designates you, which he didn't.
No, he did not.
And if the president designates you to be the point person on hurricanes, there may be a loss of credibility there.
Well, because, and again, how do you not read the room on a governor like Ron DeSantis, who the locals think about? All the hurricanes, major hurricanes that have hit since he's been governor. It's a pretty good handful of hurricanes. I don't know how many of them were above 110 miles an hour at landfall, but hurricanes that have hit. And the locals, this is kind of where he built his name and support from the people of Florida, is because of his response.
Mm-hmm.
How do you not read that room? How do you not say, if NBC News or whoever the reporter was with asks you a question about the report that he ignored your call, how do you not divert and not make it political? How do you not say the following? I understand, as the governor of a state that has been hit hard multiple times by massive hurricanes and storms, that he's probably got his hands full. I can understand him not being able to take a call in a situation like this. I'm sure it was a misunderstanding, and we'll just leave it at that. How do you not do it? Because she can't help but capitalize on anything she believes is going to give her leverage, because her campaign is in trouble.
You know, the other story that came out, too, which is just like, it's like, what in the hell? That, Mayorkas out there saying, well, that we're running out of money. And then the IG, the Inspector General, says, no, you've got billions.
Mm-hmm.
How the hell don't you know that?
Right.
I mean, that's more of the incompetence.
Right.
It's like you don't know what to believe and what not to believe. But as we said yesterday, and as Scott Jennings said, that hurricane hit, as we know, into the 27th of September. Mm-hmm. And they didn't respond until the 2nd.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And that's just that. I mean, that's bad enough right there. But everything that's gone on with it, and we'll eventually find out the truth on everything. But now with this, because you saw yesterday, I think anybody who has ever followed, probably every meteorologist, anybody like us that has covered so many hurricanes before as we have, when you saw that eye wall yesterday and you saw that thing rapidly accelerate, over a period of 9 hours from like 100 miles an hour to 185 sustained winds?
Yeah, it went from a Cat 1 to a Cat 5, and it seemed like it was
just
a very short period of time. It seemed like just a couple of advisories worth.
Yeah.
Where it just jumped.
You saw that, you just went, holy hell. I mean, seriously, when you saw that, you just went, my God.
Yeah.
And again, this thing is expected to, it's slowing down the wind speed already. It's, last we checked, was, 155.
Right.
So it's dropped 30 miles an hour. It doesn't matter, 155 miles an hour, your house is gone.
Yeah.
And just from the wind, forget about the surge in there. And they expect that it will probably land as a high Cat 3 around 125 miles an hour. Yeah, my buddy, hey, Jerry, if you're listening, they got to Jacksonville a little while ago from Tarpon Springs. They were in evacuation zone B.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting to look at those evacuation zones.
Yeah.
Because you go through, like, around Tampa, and you see them, and all of a sudden you'll see, like, right in the middle, like, right in just probably 4 or 5 miles from the coast in Clearwater. They're not under any. I don't know whether they're higher ground, and I've been in that area before, but they aren't in any evacuation zone at all.
Yeah.
And from what I've seen, A, B, and C is where you have to get out. There's A, B, C, D, E, and then non-evacuation zones. And then, A, B, C, D, E, and then you have mobile homes, which is a special zone. If you're in a mobile home, you got to get out. But I know I've got some friends in the non-evacuation zones who probably are going to evacuate in the morning sometime tomorrow. But, yeah, just amazing. Just amazing. And the politics that they're playing with it. Look, you and I said this. We don't trust anybody right now in this election on the left. Don't trust anybody.
Nope.
866-98-RED-I.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Most owner-operators leased to larger carriers are paid on a per-mile basis or a percentage of revenue per load. The per-mile basis is most prevalent among larger fleets, percentage at smaller. Pay per mile tends to dominate discussions about pay just because it's easier to measure, and pay per mile often is wrongly used as the deciding factor in leasing to a carrier. While pay per mile can be a vital factor, it's not a cure for every ill, nor does it mean a big settlement check is coming an owner-operator's way. Why? Because pay per mile always must be considered in balance with gross revenue as well as total costs. Gross revenue can include flat mileage pay that varies by length of haul, percentage revenue pay, and more. Most importantly, though, for every revenue dollar generated, only part of that dollar is profit. But for every extra dollar of cost saved, the entire dollar contributes to profit. Knowing and understanding your cost to operate is fundamental to understanding the true value of any pay package. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Friday Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You got so many audio cuts today. I mean, it's like that's all we do.
Yeah.
We sit at home and go, just watching everything going, wow.
Yeah.
By the time it gets to be about 4 o'clock before I go to sleep to take my nap, I'm like, there's just too much.
There's too much. We don't have enough time.
It's one of those days again.
Yep.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose. I was just going through the tons of audio cuts and came upon this one last night from Fox and Kayleigh McEnany on with Jesse, and it was just this quote here. Here we go. All right.
The problem is we have a Category 5 hurricane approaching the Gulf Coast. So whose brilliant idea was it to send Kamala on a comedy tour as the Southeast is about to get totally and completely slammed while Joe Biden's about to go overseas? Is he going to cancel that trip? We'll see. And what's funny about the relationship with Joe Biden, if you read through that CNN piece, they say that they are glad he is going overseas and they wish he would stay longer.
Well, it's when locals and officials say get out of the way of the storm, they probably mean that for him too. Get out of the way, just stay out of the way, would you? But seriously, if you look at this, how do you not read the room? In 2008, remember Obama and John McCain, they postponed the debate or canceled the debate?
No, they canceled campaigning.
Yeah, they came off the road.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we were wondering if they were going to cancel it. I remember them all walking into the White House because of the impending doom, the financial crisis. And it was like, okay, but what are you two guys going to do? I mean, all right. Yeah, you're senators. Okay, that's fine. And, of course, we know what Obama did after he won. But you read the room. Politically, they really couldn't do anything else. They had to go to the White House. It's what you have to do. And that goes back to this whole thing of this accusation that Kamala Harris put a call into Ron DeSantis and he didn't take her call. Regardless, there's no indication whatsoever that happened. Maybe we'll learn differently. But as of this point, Governor DeSantis is saying that he has no record of her calling. And if you're asked that question as the current vice president and the nominee for the Democratic Party or any party about that situation, you squash that immediately because you understand that the people in Florida don't give two rats' tails about this. Your call, that is. They're worried about their lives, their property, their livelihoods, their families. They're worried about real things, and you understand that because you care. And there's the problem. You have to have concern, in my opinion. If you're going to be a real public servant, and I know this is lost on most people who run for office, but for me, you need to demonstrate that you care about people, that you care about the American people, that you care about your would-be constituents if you're running to be a public servant. One of the things said about the late Ambassador Chris Stevens, who died in Benghazi, September 11, 2012, is that he was well-respected and he was a true public servant. He died in a horrific manner at the hands of the enemy. but he understood public service, and he dealt with the people of Libya, and more specifically in and around Benghazi, for a day or two after arriving there, and was well loved by the people of Libya and respected for that. You have to know that your heart must be in it to be a real public servant. Otherwise, it's self-serving. You're making this about you, and nobody cares about you.
Here's a story that she was relating to, and it was CNN's Edward Isaac. Is it DeVere or DeVere? I don't know how to pronounce the name, but it's like CNN reporter Edward Isaac DeVere said Monday that Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign is frustrated by President Biden's recent media appearances and reportedly wished the president would stay away on his next foreign trip longer. Joe Biden keeps popping up, he told CNN host Cassie Hunt, referencing recent exchanges with reporters, specifically after former GOP Representative Liz Cheney endorsed Harris and when he made a surprise appearance at the White House briefing room on Friday. Quote, on Friday, when Joe Biden felt like he had had a good week at the White House and wanted to go to the briefing room to talk about it, they did not coordinate that with the Harris campaign. By the way, I don't buy that.
No, I don't either. No.
The Harris campaign found out about that a couple of minutes before he showed up. He showed up right after Kamala Harris went on stage in Detroit, and I can tell you that a lot of people on the Harris campaign did not find that helpful. In case you don't know, in case you didn't hear it, we played the audio yesterday. What Biden said is basically that Kamala Harris was involved in every major decision and agreed with every major decision that he did while he was president of the United States. They had complete agreement on everything. The reporter said that Harris was in a tricky situation as the incumbent vice president. Harris has to embody and embrace that change and speak to that change while also being an incumbent and having Donald Trump and J.D. Vance attack her as if she has been the one signing the executive orders. No, it's not Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. She got to deal with Biden first.
Yeah.
You can't blame. You can't, it's like the first thing that came out, the whole mess about FEMA, came from FEMA.
Yeah.
It came from FEMA and Mayorkas.
Right.
And if you read the stories, it's like J.D. Vance and the former President Trump questioning and saying falsehoods about FEMA not having the money. Well, that came from Mayorkas.
Right.
You forgot. You didn't connect all of the dots.
Right.
But it's and so before you hit Trump and J.D. Vance here, you got to hit Biden because Biden is the one that's saying, no, she was involved and agreed with every decision he made as president of the United States. And then Trump and J.D. Vance come out and say that. And it's like, but she was just the vice president. How dare you say that? That's a lie. She's only, Mark Cuban, she's only the vice president. The president is in charge. And then Biden comes out. No. Everything she was in agreement with me. She was in agreement. I had her out there. She was my point person on everything.
Yep.
She did. It's like trying to destroy her completely.
And he walked into the briefing room for the first time ever to do that.
Now, here's this. Ready for this? DeVere reported on Sunday that Biden's closest advisors, citing people who have spoken with them in recent days, still believe the president would be in the same spot or better right now than Harris had he stayed in the race.
You know that he's probably having them run internals so that he can boast about it. Actually, he wouldn't even need the internals. He's going to boast about it anyway. If she loses, he's going to repeat nonstop. Here's where Joe is setting himself up for pass-fail on Kamala Harris. If she wins, he can say, well, y'all remember the day that I stepped out and told you that she's responsible for all these great things that I did. That's why she got elected. That's why she won. I wanted to make sure that America knew that. If she loses, I could have beat Trump. I could have beat Trump. I would have beat Trump. I would have beat Trump. I beat Trump before. I would have beat him again. The numbers showed I would have beat him. I would have beat him. I would have beat him. He's setting himself up, pass or fail. Win or lose, he's going to have something to brag about.
A veteran Democrat consultant, when told about Biden's closest advisors saying that Biden would be in the same spot or better than Harris right now had he stayed in the race, laughed and said that's literally insane. That's the one thing. Finally, it's coming out. The tension between the two. Mm-hmm. Finally, it's being reported. During Biden's surprise press appearance on Friday, he made the point to emphasize that he and Harris are in constant contact. Quote, we are singing from the same song sheet. She helped pass all the laws that are being employed, Biden told reporters.
Yep.
And so it's exactly what we have been saying has been going on behind the scenes.
Yep.
Exactly what we've been saying.
Yeah. Wow.
I think you were the first one to come out with that.
I knew I was right about this. There's no way, because here's the thing. Biden doesn't need anybody else, you know? He picked Kamala Harris as his VP to make him look good. Not because he's confident in her. What did he say? We want to pick a black woman. I can tell you it's probably going to be a black woman. He wanted to make himself look good. It's all about Joe Biden. Anything related to Joe Biden is about Joe Biden. It was his time, Jack. And by the way, here's the deal. And by the way, those are the things that...
I'm sorry, I just got that one.
Dana Carvey brilliance, man. I just love it. But this entire thing, you talk about fail on every single level. How do you not read the room on a massive hurricane when they're still not even beginning to recover from Helene? And she goes after the governor whose state is the target of this next major hurricane and has been before. How in the world do you let that happen? And then to this point, who thought it was a good idea for her to go on a comedy tour during this whole thing? But it tells you who she is. I'm telling you, when you look at Ron DeSantis, when you see him doing his job as governor, it's impressive. It's what you expect a governor to do, both aesthetically, but also the work that's being done. Remember, they tried to come after him. The liberal media tried to come after him. I forget which hurricane it was. But they tried to come after him, and locals were going, are you kidding me? No. He's done a great job. The one video of the one gentleman going, this is what happens under, and he's out there in what used to be his yard. Everything's gone, but he's getting the support he needed, and he said, this is why I love this governor. This is the worst I've ever seen it. And I only have my question is it what you've been saying? At some point, the levee has to break on the Democratic Party. They have to be done with all this radical behavior. It's just going to implode. Or is it just about a handful of people that are at the top of this party now? I tend to believe it's all the above.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up following the top of the hour, we have a Keith Olberman audio cut.
All right.
And you'll want to hear it.
Okay.
You'll want to hear it.
Yeah.
You'll want to.
All right, then.
And it looks like he's in his basement.
Live at Mom's basement, Keith Olberman. All right.
He is the angry man, isn't he?
Mom!
He is an angry man.
He really is. He's always been bitter.
He's always bitter and angry. I mean,
I remember young Keithy coming to the breakfast table in the morning. He would just start his day in a horrible mood.
He must have been one of the first that when they were talking about the Joy campaign for the Democrats that he had to be against that. Frickin' Joy.
What?
I'm not happy about anything.
Resistance.
Resistance.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Oh, since we were talking about Kamala Harris's comedy tour, did you hear what Brian Stelter said, CNN? That, well, if she's going on The View, she'll get some tough questions.
Did they change the cast of The View? Is Megyn Kelly on The View now?
You ready for this?
All right, what do you got?
Keith Olberman in his basement saying it's time to kick Elon Musk out of the United States.
All right.
Here we go.
Time to cancel all the contracts and reassess his immigration status and hopefully deport him the hell out of the country. And if we can't do that by conventional means, President Biden, you have presidential immunity. Get Elon Musk the F out of our country and do it now.
Aw, he sounds like he's in a mood. Oh, my gosh. Can you imagine living in that headspace?
No.
Calling for any person to be removed from the country, you know, aside from illegal immigrants who aren't supposed to be here. It's not someone specifically. If you're here illegally, you shouldn't be here. You should be deported. There's a process to come here legally. But this is about a specific person because he hates Elon Musk, because Elon went to the Butler, Pennsylvania rally, and he's pro-Trump now. And this makes Olberman angry. Wait a minute. Everything makes Olberman angry. Mom, you call this oatmeal? Oh, my gosh. And there's the other stupidity in that. You heard that, President Biden, you have immunity. Shut up. Stop talking, Keith. Seriously. I think I heard your mom calling you for dinner.
Oh, wow.
It's time to just seriously give it up.
All right, so I just I thought about this here. I want to make sure I got to it because I don't want to forget about it. And I mentioned earlier about polling.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
This is Scott Mitchell from Rasmussen. We have Trump up by 2 nationally, and Atlas Intel has him up by 3%. Published reports from battleground states have Harris weakening. How does the polling industry respond? By releasing 0 new national results for 3 full days.
By the way, Mr. Mitchell has been following this. I mean, it's what he does. But also he's been very consistent on this point. And it was a few weeks ago. This goes back, I don't know, 3, maybe 4 weeks. If you want to follow along on their YouTube, it's a good follow. Rasmussen Reports. And Mr. Mitchell he puts it out weekly. He may be doing more frequent updates closer to the election. I don't know. Some people do that, but I know he was putting out a report weekly, basically, of the data that they had seen and his analysis of the data. But he had brought it up. I think it was roughly a month ago. Why aren't they being more consistent in the polls? Why are they slowing the roll? And they're doing it again now. Why is that? Because, assuming for the sake of the argument, the other pollsters are manipulating their methodology to make it show like Harris is stronger. But my question would be, if that were the case, that's a big if. We don't have any proof of that happening. We have the history that tells us which pollsters were most accurate in previous presidential election cycles, and we can look at that and maybe apply that to a certain extent. But if that were happening, they were trying to make her look like she was performing better than she actually were, but even that wasn't working. Because if it's especially a liberal pollster, quite frankly, if you're a pollster, just put the data out there. Just put the data out there. But, this is why we can't have nice things, kids. This is why we can't have accurate things. And I don't know why in the world you wouldn't be putting out tons of polls. Right? This is your money-making season. Now, Rasmussen doesn't do the sponsored thing, and Mitchell's pointed that out before. But if the others have sponsors, I would think this is when you try and earn your keep, right? You try. This is your busy season. This is what you do.
When he talked about what and I'll read more on his suppression that came out over the weekend. He did put that as Atlas Intel that has Trump up by 3 was the number 1 pollster in 2020 for the presidential race. They were the least margin of error off on it. The worst was Quinnipiac. They were in 26th place. Now, a lot of the pollsters I don't even recognize. So these are polls that you don't see, as often as, for example, the major polling out there.
Right.
But he wrote over the weekend, from Sunday afternoon this was, because of the now obvious U.S. national poll suppression, we will increase our overnight surveying target from 350 to 500. You've seen it's roughly 350 is what they interview daily.
Right.
And if you go through it, and I think in the past we've posted it on X for people to see, the Rasmussen polling, that they poll every single day, but they don't do, you'll have some people. I saw somebody last week when Harris was up by 3 or something like that for one day. Harris is in the lead. Even Rasmussen has it. It's a one-day polling, and you can see the wide variations in the polling. Trump is up most days. Once in a while, she'll be up. But they're saying, hey, we do this. Here it is. but we do it over a period of 3 or 4 days, so we have a bigger sample. That the 350 itself isn't a big enough sample. That's not a big enough sample, so they take it over like a 4-day period, which gets you close to 1,500, which is roughly what it is. But he said, because of the now obvious U.S. national poll suppression, we will increase our overnight surveying target from 350 to 500 completes through the election, allowing us to publish a 3-day 1,500 responses rolling average daily presidential tracking poll, just as we do for our daily presidential job approval tracking poll. We will publish this new daily tracker from our own resources, but if your group would like to sponsor it, please write to Mark Mitchell. So there you go. So they're the only, you see that. I saw, I think it's Robert Cahaley, I think, out there also promoting it from Trafalgar. Now, Trafalgar more is known for the state polls.
Right.
Doing the actual state polling out there. But everything that you've seen, because you've obviously seen a difference. You've seen the media I've seen the media just up. I think the NBC story yesterday on DeSantis was a hit job to show Republicans, there she is trying to, make sure that Florida is prepared and DeSantis gets in her way. It may not have been a shot at Trump, but it was a shot to show Kamala's right there and involved in it. I think it's blowing up in their face on it, but that's what I think that you were seeing. I was watching some of CNN yesterday, and they were throwing out the Hitler stuff and everything for at Trump, and it's like wow. Well, that's already been tried over and over again. Mm-hmm. Think about this: Trump has been called Hitler and a traitor.
Yeah,
since almost 8 years now.
Yeah.
Almost 8 years. Because I think the traitor started either in January or February when the whole Russia collusion thing came up.
Mm.
But we've been really 8 years into this. 8 years.
Yeah.
And the fact is, what they don't understand is they keep getting louder and screaming and screaming and screaming and screaming.
Mm-hmm.
We've been there, done that.
Yeah.
People have already considered that.
Right.
And they keep doing it over and over and over again. And that's but that's how you know when they started upping it now and, they start to get really delusional and not rational.
Yeah, right.
Which is really saying something. There's problems. And the other thing is this entire, Kamala tour.
Mm.
By the way, as soon as they got to 60 Minutes, that wasn't a bad interview for 60 Minutes. The questions were pretty good.
Mm.
And we'll play more of that coming up. And she couldn't answer them. And
right.
neither could Walls. It was the same thing over and over again. And it's like, okay, that didn't help. And going on the, what should I call it? The smooching the posterior shows isn't going to do anything for her either. The problem is not that the country has not seen her laugh enough.
Exactly. Well, I'm starting to think, in fact, the problem is not underexposure. Because we're not getting anything new, right? If it were the case that they started this media blitz campaign in recent days, and you started seeing something you didn't see before, then you would say, okay, this is a problem that they waited this long. You're not seeing anything new. So underexposure really now, I mean, it's a hindsight observation, but that's all you have in a case like this. It really isn't the fact that she was underexposed. It's her. Because there's nothing new. You're seeing the exact same lack of performance in every setting. Nothing is changing. I'll say this. There certainly is something to overexposure. And with all the complaints of her not talking to the media, I'll give her the advice that you and I were talking about, I don't know, a couple of months ago. Stay out of the media. Your best bet is to not have overexposure.
If she loses, it's because of what we've said, and people have finally reached that point. I think more people are reaching the point now, and it's, again, as we've always stated, and thank you for people that repost it or promote when we say it, the biggest challenge and the biggest political enemy to the Democrats has not been the Republican Party. It's been reality.
It really has, yeah.
And most of it was economic reality, and the other part of it was the governor of Texas making it more of a reality on illegal immigration to people around the country. And that's the difference.
Right.
We have been, since I have been covering politics, everything has always been, if you do this, you'll get to this down the road.
Right. Yeah.
Well, now we've got down the road.
Yeah, exactly.
And people realize it. Plus, the insanity where the left has gone, the misogyny of the absolute women hatred, and the bullying and intimidation of young women in the radical transgender movement, the insanity. And I've said this. I said this a long time ago. You can basically just take the insanity of the radical transgender movement, that a boy can be a girl because the boy says so, that a minor should be in charge of cutting off their genitals, that a man should be in a woman's locker room, that it's okay for men to expose themselves, and women just have to get used to male genitalia in a private/public area.
Right.
To go back to the Charlotte Observer back then.
Yeah.
And so you can take that right there. And I've taken that many times, and I've just said, take that and understand, if that's the mentality of any human being out there, then anything else that they bring to the table is suspect.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because it has nothing to do with compassion.
No, in fact, it's quite the opposite.
In fact, I think there's a complete lack of compassion for transgenders and the radical transgender movement.
Well, no, we talked about that. If your position is you can't have a conversation because there's too much of a mental health crisis in that group of individuals, then you're not getting to the heart of what's going on here.
Right. And instead of confronting what you say is the mental health problem, that's what the supporters of transgender say.
Right.
Instead of saying, let's get to the bottom of it and get these people the help that they need, they say, no, these people are so mentally disturbed that if you even discuss this, they might commit suicide. Instead of saying help them, you're saying, no, go with the urge that they have instead of trying to solve the problem.
Right. That's insane.
It's absolutely insane. 866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Yeah, here's the article I want to find. CNN's chief media analyst, Brian Stelter, claimed Monday that The View will have tough questions for the vice president this week. Stelter, who recently returned to the network after being ousted 2 years ago spoke about both former President Trump and Harris's media strategies. Harris, in particular, has been criticized for avoiding interviews after she took up the nomination. Well, said Stelter, she's on 60 Minutes tonight. That's the most watched news magazine in the United States. Said, so Trump choosing not to do 60 Minutes, Harris is in there. That will certainly be an example of the tough questioning of the vice president.
There's a word that I want to blurt out right now that would get me fired. So I'm not going to blurt it out. But I will be blurting it out during the break.
Stelter went on to note that Harris will be on ABC's The View on Tuesday, claiming he had been assured the co-host will have difficult questions for the Democratic candidate. Here's the problem, though.
What?
She was asked solid questions on 60 Minutes. It's not being asked solid questions. It's being able to answer them.
You know, that's the great point.
That's what he fails.
Because there are moments where, like, even a Colbert will try and become a journalist and ask a question, and you go, oh, okay, that's actually a fair question. But she's not going to be able to answer them in any setting. It doesn't matter what it is.
America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara.
I would say in response to Mr. Stelter's claim that the vice president would be getting tough questions on The View, let's just take a look at the approach of different media groups and programs. For instance, over at Fox News, at least at one point it was, we report, you decide. As opposed to The View, it's we report, our lawyers decide. So, and it also depends on the definition of tough. Because I would say, on a scale, if we're going to scale this properly and we're going to weight it evenly, that tough would be just about any question you ask her. So to that extent, I'm going to Snopes this as partially true.
Well, Stelter, when he came back, remember the first day he came back? He said, no, she doesn't have to do interviews.
Yeah.
Because definitely the imagery of her, she's not Trump, and the imagery of her not being Trump is good enough.
Yeah.
And so now he's saying, oh, she's doing the tough. They actually believe, because this was Stelter was saying, Trump agreed to do 60 Minutes, and he backed out. Trump said, I never agreed to do 60 Minutes.
Right, yeah.
But it really doesn't matter either way.
Right.
People already know who Donald Trump is.
Right, yeah.
He was president for 4 years. They know exactly what he thinks.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter. And if you're a Republican or independent, you remember Leslie Stahl. You remember they were wrong on the laptop. And that was a major part of that interview that they promoted. And Leslie Stahl was completely wrong. Completely wrong.
Right.
And so we all know how politics goes. Trump doesn't need to talk to 60 Minutes now. People know who he is. He knows she's on the defensive. Yeah. That's politics.
Right.
There isn't anybody that's saying, we haven't had enough of Trump. Could you give me more Trump? I mean, Trump supporters, yes. But outside of Trump supporters,
yeah,
I don't know anybody out there in the media, doggone it, we need to get more Trump.
Yeah.
We just don't have enough of what he believes.
That's been the problem all along.
That's been the problem.
Underexposure. Trump is underexposed.
Yes. He never wants to say anything.
Why doesn't he even put his name on anything? He never puts his name on it. You would think with all the things that he owns, he would put his name on one thing. I've never seen it.
And so it doesn't. I know they're trying to say she's got the guts and he doesn't. As we get close to the election, she has the gut. Well, it's not about whether you get tough questions. It's whether you actually answer the question. And
again, define tough.
Well, let's get to a couple of points here. Let's see if she answers the question.
Yeah.
Because, well, she's taking tough questions. Is she answering them?
Right. Yeah. Right.
Here we go.
Let me tell you what your critics and the columnists say.
Okay.
They say that the reason so many voters don't know you is that you have changed your position on so many things. You were against fracking, now you're for it. You supported looser immigration policies, now you're tightening them up. You were for Medicare for all, now you're not. So many that people don't truly know what you believe or what you stand for. And I know you've heard that.
In the last 4 years, I have been Vice President of the United States. And I have been traveling our country. And I have been listening to folks and seeking what is possible in terms of common ground. I believe in building consensus. We are a diverse people, geographically, regionally, in terms of where we are in our backgrounds. And what the American people do want is that we have leaders who can build consensus, where we can figure out compromise and understand it's not a bad thing, as long as you don't compromise your values, to find common sense solutions. And that has been my approach.
If you're not compromising your values, what are you compromising?
Well, she didn't answer the question.
As long as you're not compromising, the things you believe in.
And she started out, again, as she does a lot of times, let me state what's going on right now.
Yeah.
I've been vice president for 4 years, and I've traveled a lot.
By the way, that's a lie. It hasn't been quite 4 years.
No, it's not a lie. In my mind, it's a lot longer than 4 years.
That's what I was going to say. It's mentally 200 years.
Yeah, and it's not a lie if I believe it.
Exactly. My brain keeps telling me it's true.
Now, here's another one, okay? Here's on the border. All right, here we go.
I've been covering the border for years. And so I know this is not a problem that started with your administration.
Correct.
But there was an historic flood of undocumented immigrants coming across the border the first 3 years of your administration. As a matter of fact, arrivals quadrupled from the last year of President Trump. Was it a mistake to loosen the immigration policies as much as you did?
It's a long-standing problem. And solutions are at hand. And from day one, literally, we have been offering solutions.
What I was asking was it a mistake to kind of allow that flood to happen in the first place?
I think the policies that we have been proposing are about fixing a problem, not promoting a problem.
What? What? What is?
So it doesn't matter if it's a hard question or a tough question. It's whether you can ever answer a question.
What is? So my OCD right now is trying to organize what she just said and has no place to put it.
Are you ready? Let's continue.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Fine, I guess. Whatever.
Was democracy best served by President Biden stepping down and basically handing you a nomination? You didn't have to go through a primary process. You didn't have to fight off other contenders. That's not really the way our system was intended to work.
President Biden made a decision that I think history is going to show is rare among leaders, which was to put country before self. And I am proud to have earned the support of the vast majority of delegates and to have been elected the Democratic nominee. I am proud to have received the endorsement of leaders around this country from every background and walk of life to fight in this election over the next month for our democracy.
But I think this truncated process is why people think or say they don't really know who you are.
Look, I've been in this race for 70 days.
And where the hell you been for 70 days? We know.
My God.
We know.
It's just so bad.
Look, today is a Tuesday. And tomorrow, and that's what I really want to promote, tomorrow is Wednesday. I want to build a consensus so that people know that day before yesterday was Sunday. And I understand, too, the working class, because I know that everybody is working for the weekend. Everybody wants a new romance. Everybody's going off the deep end. Everybody wants a second chance.
By the way, I did see that Loverboy is still playing. Guys, button up your shirts, please. And could you take not the six-pack abs, the I don't know, the keg abs?
Listen.
Oh my, they're definitely not working for the weekend. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You almost got me. I know you're doing Loverboy. You almost got me into doing Wang Chung.
Well,
everybody's having joy tonight.
Well,
everybody's Wang Chunging tonight.
I think they should. I think everybody Wang Chung.
Oh my gosh.
It's so bad. It's so bad.
There were some Trump ads made out of it, though.
They just aired the entire interview.
You ready? Here we go.
Yeah. All right.
The reason so many voters don't know you is that you have changed your position on so many things. You were against fracking, now you're for it. You supported looser immigration policies, now you're tightening them up. You were for Medicare for all, now you're not. So many that people don't truly know what you believe or what you stand for. And I know you've heard that.
Bill, that is why I believe in my soul and heart the American people are ready to turn the page.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
Oh, brilliant, man. That's all you have to do. Seriously, he listens.
Well, we had said that
we're going to claim he does.
Yeah, we said that a long time ago. This is a campaign where you don't have to use anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
You really don't.
No, you don't.
You don't have. All you have to do is use her in her own words.
It's really all you have to do. I mean, seriously, it couldn't be easier. Just find an editor, and then you have his tag on the end for legal, and then you're done. Just wait for her to put more stuff out. It must have been joyful when the Trump campaign heard she was going to do another interview. Oh, my gosh. Seriously, you just hire an editor. You know, you don't have to do any voiceover or anything else. You just play her. She's doing all of it. She does all of your heavy lifting. What a gift.
She does.
Yeah.
It is really it is a gift to the Trump campaign, and they're actually doing what we advised them to do a long time ago.
Yeah.
And when she became the nominee, we said, well, this is easy.
Yeah.
All you have to do is play her in her own words over and over and over again.
Yep.
So that's the thing. It doesn't matter whether you ask tough questions. She can't answer them. Does anybody know any more about Kamala Harris after that 60 Minutes interview?
No.
No.
And that's my point. I now don't believe at all that her problem has been underexposure. I don't. I think we are at the tipping point now of moving into overexposure for her. All 5 interviews in 70 days.
It's enough.
You have what you need.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, one of the problems is is the fact that she really has never been vetted or forced to ask questions. Which, you know, you look at Trump, and look, he ran for a year and a half before he became president for 4 years, and then he's been speaking for another 4 years.
And he's been doing talk shows talking about the ideas that he believes in.
Well, yeah.
You know, a handful of these core ideas, that other countries should pay their way and everything else. But for decades.
Since the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, since the 80s. Yeah. So he actually so everybody knows who he is.
Right.
And they don't know who she is, and she doesn't want them to know who she is.
Right.
That's the problem. And it's not going to change by a couple of interviews over the next couple of weeks.
No.
It doesn't change it.
Nope.
Especially when you won't answer any questions. Trump always wanted people to know exactly how he believed.
Yeah. Yep. He sure did. And he was, at the end of all those talk show appearances, whether it was, Donahue, Larry King, Oprah, Larry King.
They loved him.
They loved him.
Absolutely loved him.
It was the inevitable question at the end of almost every appearance, but certainly most appearances. Are you going to run? Are you going to run? Are you going to run? And you knew who he is. He's priced in. And quite frankly, now she is too.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio, the planet Earth, we believe.
I don't know about that anymore. I can't prove it.
Oh, my gosh. I was just thinking that if I ever changed my mind on something, I don't know, that I hold a very strong opinion on, and did what Harris did, as we as talk show hosts did that, we'd lose complete credibility with every single listener.
Yeah.
Gary, why did you change your mind on the radical transgender movement? Why have you always believed that a man cannot be a woman just because the man says so, and now you believe that they can? Because that's a scientific question. Well, let me tell you that, I've been a talk show host for the last 35 years. Now heading into my 36 years after last week. And being a talk show host, we get into a lot of controversial topics, and sometimes we cannot reach a consensus. Well, my goal is to reach a consensus on this show without at all changing my values. So that's why I now believe that a man can be a woman if the man says so.
I'll start by saying today is Tuesday.
I like yours better. I like the day of the week answer.
It's the day after Monday. And when we talk about tomorrow, we must mention Wednesday. Also a child on the Addams family. And that's what the future is, children. They're our future, just like Wednesday is our future. I don't know about, I'm just a caveman. I don't know about your modern edibles and mushrooms. But
I'd like to.
Everybody is high. It's what makes this job so enjoyable.
And Gary, why do you wish to be president? Well, I'd like to have the world to sing in perfect harmony.
Was
that a Pepsi or Coke? That was a Coke commercial, wasn't it?
Yeah, and here's the hippies run Coca-Cola. Here is the. It's true.
They were hippies. They were hippies. They said, "Hey, you want to do a Coke commercial?"
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Here's the soft drink.
Are you kidding me?
Oh,
we'll give you free Coke. What? Just show up on this mountain wearing, what your robes and whatever you wear.
Oh, nobody under the age of 50 knows what we're talking about.
And make sure you don't wear any shoes.
Is it still funny, even though you don't know what we're talking about if you're under 50? Just
when you Google it, you're going to laugh.
Yeah, put Coke commercial. I'd like to teach the world to sing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go look that up, and then you can be part of the.
Well, and I was just a very small child, and I was shouting at the TV, "I'd like the world to shut up. These hippies are taking my Coca-Cola." I think it's the first time I ever said "damn hippies."
And you hate damn hippies and college boys.
Exactly.
Some of the college boys were damn hippies.
They took hippie 101.
Oh, wait a minute. We're doing a nationally syndicated radio talk show, Eric. It seems like we're just laughing incoherently.
Well, that's the world we live in. If everybody else is going to be high and we're going to be sober, we might as well enjoy it. Because they're all smoking or eating something.
Oh, my head hurts from laughing.
I mean, it's so stupid. I really do believe now that I'm right about this, and her campaign knows it. Somebody must have been telling her all along, we're worried about overexposure. But I've only done 2 interviews. We think that's enough.
And both you and I came from middle-class families, and yet we don't relate to her.
I came from I was the youngest of 4 boys, and I have one younger sister. And as the not so middle child, you know what peeves me about that whole situation? The middle child in our family is like the favorite. He's the rock star. My brother, he's the rock star of the family. It didn't work out with that whole middle child thing that everybody built out that whole thing. I was more of the middle child.
Oh, I was the middle child. I was the neglected one.
Yeah?
I'm a victim.
Well, that explains a lot.
Wow. I was the middle child in a middle-class family.
Well, sorry, Gary. This isn't about you. This is about me. Don't make it about you.
Who doesn't like Malcolm in the Middle?
It's which is they believe the prequel to Breaking Bad. There's a whole internet conspiracy.
Is there really?
Yeah, because of Bryan Cranston.
Oh, okay.
But this is the. I honestly believe that it is. It isn't underexposure. I mean, that's not her problem. And how long before we see? Because, all right, I'd say the 60 Minutes thing was not a hit. There was no energy. In fact, it seemed to stir up more stuff. I mean, we'll see. We're not too far out from it yet. Let's see how this steeps throughout the week. But there's no leading indicators here that tell me that it was a positive for her. And if you can't get it done on 60 Minutes, there's nowhere that you're going to get it done. And it is convincing people, changing hearts and minds. You and I have been saying this for a couple of weeks. We believe this is priced in. We believe everything is priced in. I don't believe for a moment that there are many, if any, undecided voters, except technically, if you want to categorize people who aren't sure if they're going to vote or not as undecided, I guess you could build that category accordingly. But otherwise, we're in a situation now, and it's unprecedented, but of course it was going to be this. She's not capable, doesn't have confidence in herself, clearly. You would have seen her out there day one. Joe Biden doesn't lack confidence. Joe Biden, that's the one thing you can't say about him. You can't say for a moment that he lacks confidence. In fact, quite frankly, as of late, he's been overconfident. Whatever's going on with his cognitive issues is not a good look. It's not a good turnout. It always ends badly anytime he makes an appearance, except for his very coherent appearance in the White House media briefing room on Friday, which was wild. And of course, we believe his revenge in part on Kamala Harris. But this is a campaign that is lost, that has no direction, because its nominee, that the head of the campaign, the person herself, has none.
This is right here. This is from San Francisco Chronicle. Kamala Harris's viral interview appearances are really the P word, peeing off legacy media. Mm-hmm. The VP's penchant for cult favorite podcast and interview series is a two birds, one stone campaign strategy. Politico opened its morning newsletter on newsletter.
Freudian slip. A loose letter.
Is that how it came out? Good. It wasn't a curse word. I wasn't sure how that came out.
Yeah.
Politico opened its morning newsletter on Sunday with the gripe, don't call it a media blitz. After avoiding the media for almost the entire campaign, VP Kamala Harris is still largely avoiding the media, the two authors of Playbook wrote, which is in Politico.
Yeah.
The specific media the authors are talking about here is the legacy media. Think CNN, the New York Times, or even Fox News. Politico accuses Harris of skirting outlets like those in favor of alternative venues such as podcast and late-night TV. The complaint comes after Harris's team announced her latest media schedule on Monday. She's slated to appear on CBS's 60 Minutes, and then on Thursday, she plans to stop in Nevada for a Univision town hall. She was interviewed on a wildly popular sex and dating podcast, Call Her Daddy, in an episode that was released on Sunday. And later this week, she's scheduled to appear on The View, The Howard Stern Show, and The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. The Playbook authors admit that 60 Minutes interview and the Univision town hall may offer some value to voters. No, it didn't on 60 Minutes. It was bad for her. But they take issue with her other appearances on the schedule. Remember, Politico is liberal. Let's be real here. Most of these are not the type of interviews that are going to press around the issues she may not want to talk about, even as voters want more specifics from Harris, the authors wrote. Instead, expect most of these sit-downs to be a continuation of the, quote, vibes campaign that Harris has perfected. What?
Yeah.
That
Vibes.
Harris has perfected?
Perfected?
I mean, like
Okay.
it's worked for her?
I don't know. Is that
Okay.
the obligatory compliment?
Politico's real gripe, though, is that Harris is doing a disservice to voters by avoiding difficult interviews with news outlets like, well, Politico. This is something that only news outlets like Politico care about. Voters don't care. Anyone reading or watching exclusive news interviews with Harris is already an engaged voter and probably already decided who they're going to vote for in November. Harris is employing a smart strategy. When your opponent in an election is Donald Trump and the tens of millions of people who will vote for you based on the fact that you're not Trump, you can afford to spend time courting and possibly energizing the folks who are less engaged in politics. Call Her Daddy is the 5th most popular podcast on Spotify. Is it really not worth an hour of Harris's time to appear in front of that audience? Did you see the number of the stories out there about the number of complaints of the audience that they had? Said, you never made this politics before. This has never been a podcast about politics. And
Ooh.
now you made it political
Okay.
by doing a softball.
Yeah, not only did you make it political, but you clearly were doing this in her favor, and that's not what this podcast is about. I'll tell you, that's a problem.
But they have it. Here's a tough question. Who cares to complain that a presidential candidate is not doing interviews with the same outlets that have had almost exclusive access to presidential candidates? Excuse me. Reeks of a little bit of arrogance. It's also counterintuitive, essentially saying to Harris, come do an interview with us so we can kick your posterior. Is not a persuasive argument. When I was in college studying journalism, blah, 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 blah. This is somebody who, the author of the San Francisco Chronicle, that doesn't want her to actually do serious interviews because they know she'll be hurt by it. And look, we know it. CNN talked about it yesterday, said these interviews aren't going to do anything for her.
No.
Because people still don't know. They don't get to know anything about her. And really what they're saying here in this Alec Regenball, the politics reporter for the San Francisco Chronicle, is basically saying if you tell people what you think, they're not going to vote for you when Trump wins. So you need to pretend that you're doing interviews and you're up on the issues when you're really not, and that you can explain yourself on the issues where you really can't. Just be out there, and that's enough to get you the victory because Trump is that bad.
Yeah.
They're still on that. Now, the campaign, what do you think? The campaign is just saying, let's do all these things? They're doing it for a reason. And they put her on 60 Minutes for a reason.
Yep.
And Univision for a reason. And it's because they see that in the polling.
Yep.
That's the only reason this is going on. They see it in the polling that people are not happy with this campaign and don't know where she stands and knows exactly where Trump stands.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter whether Trump does fluff interviews. He's been around for 9 years.
Yep.
And before that, he's been around for 40 years
He's
doing
been a
interviews.
household name for decades.
Right. And as you said, where he went on every single talk show and all these people that turned out, we didn't know what maybe their politics were back then, but every one of them turned out to be liberal, and every one of them at the end said to Trump, when are you going to run for president?
Exactly.
They loved him.
Yep.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at JJ Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. Drivers must always be prepared for a roadside inspection. This means drivers should always have their personal, vehicle, and company credentials organized and ready, and having any shipment paperwork such as bills of lading or hazardous materials shipment emergency response information organized and ready for the inspection official. Just an FYI, the top 2 violations written against drivers every year, as well as during Operation Road Check, are log general form and manner and log not current. Both are completely avoidable if the driver keeps the log accurate, compliant, and current at all times. Having the vehicle ready for inspection involves the driver conducting daily inspections and making sure any problems that are discovered are immediately corrected. Vehicle readiness also requires the company to make sure that the vehicle is current on all scheduled maintenance and that the maintenance schedule is adequate. This will make sure the driver is being given a sound vehicle to start with. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. So what you get from that San Francisco Chronicle story is the writer is saying, "Oh no, she's doing the right thing by not doing interviews with legacy media."
Mm-hmm.
The reason that the campaign, again, I'll repeat this again because I think it's important. The reason that her campaign had her do 60 Minutes was just that. The fact that they're, and I guarantee their research is telling them, their political research, their polling is telling them people don't know where she stands and that she won't take the tough questions. And they see that her support is eroding in the polls. And that's why they're doing this, Matt. They didn't just decide, well, we've done nothing this entire time.
No.
Let's throw her out there and have her do a couple of interviews.
Yeah.
They're doing this because she's falling behind. They believe she's falling behind in their internal polls. And when they do the polls, they ask specifically, what would you want to see more of her? We want to know where she stands because we don't know. 45% of undecideds do not know one issue of where she stands. That poll came out, late last week?
Right.
We did that one? Yep.
Well, and it begs the question, then what were they seeing before? I mean, they clearly believed she could get away with not appearing and that she would be just fine up until now.
Powered by windmills and solar panels. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose. I have the answer for your last question that you had right before we went to the bottom of the hour.
Okay.
Why did the Harris campaign then believe that it was, what were they using to say that it was a smart strategy to basically have Kamala Harris hide in the basement? I think it's directly related to a significant portion of those people that joined her campaign came from the Biden campaign, and they viewed that policy was successful for Biden, and they believe they could do it again because they believe that all you have to do with Trump is not hurt yourself. Just be there as a person that has no negatives. Don't say anything. BS if you're out there. Throw platitudes everywhere else. Tell your life story. Don't talk about the issues. All you have to be, as that author in the San Francisco Chronicle said, all you have to do to win this election is not be Trump. You don't have to offer anything, any plan. It doesn't matter.
My name is not Trump, and I approve this message. and that's what that's where I ended with my answer going into the break. The answer is no. They up until now they thought it was working, and it's not. And the fact of the matter is, it's not because what they don't see, what they can't. Here's the thing. There are things that you can see, and there are things that you believe. You have to be, you look at certain data, and it's like, all right, is that really what's going on here? They cannot comprehend a world where the toxicity of Trump has diminished greatly. They, in their mind, of course, for them, it hasn't. It's, in fact, probably for them greater than ever.
Mm-hmm.
You can see all around, there's evidence that shows it's not what it was in the past, generally speaking, with the general public. They can't comprehend that. They can't process a world that even tolerates Trump. But the fact of the matter is, much of his toxicity is gone. The question is it enough to change hearts and minds and have people vote for him? We're seeing it. I mean, the one person who was questioned after the debate, who said, I cried when Hillary lost, but now I'm voting for Trump. Those are anecdotal. Even when we get to people with any amount of influence, like a Bari Weiss, who we have great respect for. She's great at what she does, and I believe she's an honest person. Michael Rappaport, who seems to have his eyes open now. But even then, that is still anecdotal. That is still not an indication of how much it is not a true measurement, and I don't know how you would get one of how much of the toxicity is gone. You and I have been doing this long enough. We know the room. We can read the room. And there are things you hear and we heard in the past, both in 2016 and in 2020, about Trump. And there are things now that have just gone away. And also, there is data that shows with everything, and now, I mean, it's pretty much everything that they have thrown at him. And the cases against him, the whole lawfare thing, but all these cases against him, and still, he's performing very well. So in the polls, none of that seems to have hit him and hurt him in a measurable way.
Part of the problem for the Harris campaign is they, again, they had a lot of people come in from the Biden campaign. And that election, every election is a different election. But that election of 2020, when you look at COVID and everything that Americans had gone through.
Mm.
And the interesting thing is, think about how times change when your personal self-interest is at stake. And inflation made it where everybody's personal self-interest was at stake, not hypothetically in the future, but right now.
Yeah.
Yesterday and right now and tomorrow. And that, to me, was really the big change. Plus, and I'll give the credit to Governor Abbott, even though Governor Abbott is the one that really made it a story. The migrants were being shipped all over by the federal government to begin with, but it wasn't a big story. It didn't become a story till Abbott did it, and Abbott didn't send the majority of migrants to the cities. The federal government did.
Yep.
But it became a story because of that, and it localized that as an issue. So it's not a coincidence that those are the two biggest issues.
Right. Yeah.
And still the biggest issues. It doesn't matter what the topic is. It comes into it. Hurricanes. Right?
Yeah.
Hurricanes have to do with migrants.
Yeah.
Okay, we all know the debate over the last couple of days. I'm not going to go in it again. I'm sure we will in the next couple of days more, as we did earlier in the show. But the fact is, it enters everything. And so you had if they lose, if the Harris campaign, if they lose the election, it's because they took one election that was a complete anomaly and forgot the Eric Harley rule of politics.
Always run like you're 20 points behind.
Always run like you're 20 points behind. Never take anything for granted. Understand the language and the tone that you're using. Who wrote that about J.D. Vance the other day? They said it's not what J.D. Vance says. It is.
It is.
It is. But
we believe it is.
It is. But the point was, it's like he's just articulating the position of what's going on. It's how he says it.
I think
how he delivers it. And that's why for years we said, Trump, you're on the right stuff. And it worked. Trump in his first term could do that because he was the outsider. Once he became president, he was no longer an outsider. Now that he's been out, he's the outsider again.
Well, this is what gives me great hope for the future. My wife accuses me over the weekend. She goes, sometimes we talk like we're, 95, like we're our parents' age, but we're not. She says, we're not that old. But still, by comparison, you look at the next generation. This was my concern during Trump's first term. We need people that are willing to fight, but they have to get out there. They have to be blunt, straightforward. They have to articulate. And now we see them on the right. Ramaswamy, J.D. Vance, Byron Donalds, Governor DeSantis. These are individuals who don't flinch. And that's exactly what the future of this country needs, because conservative values will ultimately save this country. It really is who we are. This radical behavior that has come about and is just boiled over isn't going to be tolerated much longer. We're at a crossroads. We have a strong indicator in this election cycle as to how much longer it would go on. Because if she wins, it's an indicator that it's going to go on for a while. But at some point, you've been saying it, at some point, things got to change. And I do believe that, too. I believe that there will be that pendulum point. And it's going to, we're seeing indication of that kind of change. We don't make predictions on the election. I think it's really hard to believe that that things are as close as they are in state, especially a state like Pennsylvania. With everything right now that we're seeing from the voices of the working class, members of unions, not all unions, but my gosh, when you see the Teamsters come out and say, well, we're not endorsing anybody. And
I can't play Sean O'Brien's.
No, his latest thing
with on the pot. What's his name? Theo Vaughn.
Theo Vaughn, yeah.
His podcast, because it's F the Democrats this and F the Democrats that. And we've given $15.7 million to the Democrats over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
370,000 to Republicans. Why are we doing this? Why are we?
How did that happen?
Well, here's the thing for you and me. For years, you and I have said that.
Welcome to 20 years ago. Yeah,
right. Welcome to 20 years ago that we've been saying that to the unions about their leadership supporting the Democrats and getting just bombarded each and every day. Not for a while, but back then getting bombarded. You guys are the most anti-union people. Blah, 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 blah. And now the Teamsters president
sounds like Eric and Gary.
20 years ago.
Yep. Theo Vaughn's podcast is this past weekend. You can see it you can watch it on YouTube for free if you want to if you want to see the Sean O'Brien thing. I like Theo Vaughn. I think he's a very funny comedian, but I love his podcast too. But there's Trump was on it I think we played. I don't know how much of it we played. A few minutes.
We
of
played.
it.
Yeah.
When he was on it recently, but the one with Sean O'Brien is a tell. And here's my question, because we answered or we asked. All right, we had been hearing anecdotally from members over the years. Hey, we don't agree with leadership. We don't agree with leadership. But it wasn't what it is now with the Teamsters. And then you hear Sean O'Brien. Well, because we asked when it was clear that when they made the statement, they weren't going to. And in fact, Sean O'Brien said months ago, a great number of our members are going to be voting for Trump. But now it's to the point, and we were like, well, wait a minute. At some point, then leadership has to represent, we believe, see the truth, but certainly have sympathy for the members and represent the members the way that union leadership should. And is that an indicator? Is that an indicator? Because I really think that this, and I've been saying this for a while, a better part of 2 years. This is a significant crossroads. And it sounds cliche to say that we're at a crossroads of America. If you've been listening for any amount of time to this program, then you know if I say it, then it's not rhetoric. Because I do believe we are at this point. And if we're going to give a rubber stamp and the okie dokie to this radical behavior on so many levels, and a broken country on so many levels, the border, inflation, national defense.
Racism, identity politics, Jewish hatred, the misogyny,
the radical transgender movement,
the misogyny and insanity of the radical transgender movement.
The downfall of not only Title IX, but now the First Amendment is what they're calling for.
Now promoting and advocating the elimination of the First Amendment, not by those perceived as radicals by Democrats, but mainstream Democrats.
Yep.
And considered old school Democrats,
John
Kerry and Hillary Clinton.
Yep.
Just in the last couple of weeks. I mean, it's not, if you're an American and understand what America is about and understand the Constitution, you're outraged by it.
Yep. Well, and, someone put the side-by-side of Karine Jean-Pierre talking about FEMA and the money for immigrant housing from a couple of years ago, and then her recently denying that was the case. They get caught all the time. They forget the internet exists, I guess.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, the 4 a.m. Central Time update has come in from the National Hurricane Center. Milton still at 155 miles per hour, same as the last update. East-northeast at 12 miles per hour, so it's not heading south no south in there anymore, but still a Cat 5.